Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Killian Charles from Brunswick Exploration. Guys, I found this company from just all the chatter there was online on social media and the message boards, and I thought, hey, this is worth looking into. What I like about the strategy that the company's doing is that they've staked a massive amount of land, they've acquired a bunch of land, and then they're doing the due diligence necessary to go and identify the best possible drill targets, and then they're drilling those out. Now, Killian, as you're going to see in this interview, is a very engaging speaker. He's very passionate about exploration and trying to identify the next big lithium project out of Canada. In this interview, we discuss the company's exploration and drill program. We also get into how Killian feels about the lithium market, which had a pretty rough 2023 with lithium carbonate prices down 83%. Killian is very optimistic about what the lithium market's going to look like in 2024, and he gives us his reasoning. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Killian, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So I want to start with some high-level talk about lithium. We've seen lithium; it's had its cycles over the years, dating back probably to the 1950s, and you maybe can go earlier than that if you want to. I think in 2023, the price of lithium carbonate was down 83%. So it seems like we're kind of in a down cycle here for the price of lithium, and perhaps that could lead to some bad consequences for some of the lithium juniors. But I'd like to get your sort of take on what's happening right now in the lithium market, and ultimately why you decided to tie your living to lithium. What is it that gets you excited about the future of lithium?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I like to joke around and say that the worst thing that can happen to any commodity is for the price to be too high. And the best thing that can happen for any commodity is for the price to be too low. Essentially, you're setting up your classic bear and bull scenario in both respectively. You know, what we're seeing right now, lithium's a special industry. It's been around for a long time. You mentioned 1950s. Sure, you know, but fundamentally, it's one that still is in its infancy relative to copper, relative to gold, relative to nickel. The amount of mines out there, the amount of global production is actually really small. And so it creates these huge swings. There's no inventories to buffer. There's no large mines to buffer all that capacity. So that means that in the span of 8 months, you'll have the price quintuple, which is what happened from 2021 to 2022. I like to anyone point out the same thing happened on the gold side or the copper side. They don't quintuple over 9 months. And on the flip side of that, it creates a lot of new entry. And you sort of create, you know, that scenario where the price is going to retrace some of its step. Now, you know, if you look at any fundamental on a medium, and by medium, I mean like 6 to 12 months basis, nothing has changed, right? To me, when I see these things happening, we are at the classic bottom of a bear market, right? This is the time where anyone who wants to see outsized return on any type of investment should be sniffing around, because governments are still investing in decarbonization. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, is the single largest act that I have ever seen in the last 50 years in the US, and it has a huge impact in terms of redesigning the global economy, and lithium stands to benefit. That hasn't changed. So, you know, all right, it's been 2023 was a ho-hum year to a certain extent. But again, the best thing that can happen to any commodity is for the price to be too low. And you're just setting up that next scenario. You're having mine closure, and now the runway is set up to have a nice swing into 2024 and into the future.
It's sort of like that old saying, the best cure for low prices is low prices.
Exactly. It doesn't go right. It's a saying for a reason.
So we'll get into Brunswick Exploration in a minute, but you obviously, you work in the space, you're talking to lots of different investors. I'm sure you're talking to the CEOs and corporate development people for various lithium juniors out there. What do you notice? Like, do you think that there's a problem right now if we're just talking about the basket or the universe of lithium junior stocks that exist out there, where there's a lot of names that don't really have enough hope or scale to ever produce anything that are soaking up retail investor capital, and it's making it harder for the actual credible names to be able to go and get some of that capital to build out their exploration programs?
Look, that's a very common thing to see in any market that undergoes a lot of effervescence. Yeah, it happened. When you go back to 2022, when you go back to the start of 2023, there's a lot of stories out there that fundamentally never worked. And so you have investors who get caught up in that momentum, get burnt, and so pull back. And so the entire space sort of ends up being punished for, I don't want to say bad fate actors, but people not realizing what is going to be a mine. On the gold side, on the copper side, it's easy. We know what a good mine looks like. We've been doing that for a long time. When it comes to lithium, what is a good mine? It's a little bit tougher. It's a little bit trickier. We kind of know what a good grade is. We kind of know what a good width is. But there's a little bit of that misunderstanding that trickles through. And so, again, it's perfectly normal. We are now the market. I find that investors, especially as we go into the next cycle, which I'm quite convinced we're on the margins of entering the next cycle, investors will be more selective. And that's good because it means that the stories that have strong assets, that have a strong strategy are going to benefit from an outsized perspective at that point in time. So, it's really important that people get to know the space better. And I think that that's where we stand right now.
So speaking of companies with strong assets and strong programs, let's get into Brunswick Exploration. Can you give us a high-level overview of the company for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Brunswick was a little bit of a crazy idea a few years ago. It's all about exploration, right? Lithium, it's fantastic, but it was always a focus on exploration. And what we saw was discoveries. You have to understand that, again, and I keep using the example here for copper or gold, but that's just something people understand. You rarely make discoveries in that space. It's so hard. And over the span of 10 years in Australia, they were making a discovery almost every month. That just doesn't happen anymore. That hasn't happened in like 50, 70 years. It's been a long time. And so we saw what had happened in Australia and said, well, geez, the same thing's going to happen in Canada. And exploration, to be quite frank, usually it sucks. It's tough, it's hard, and you're going to fail a lot. There's nothing like being a geologist and every day waking up and not finding anything. It's a hard business to be in. But we said, well, not so much that we're going to refute it, but if it's tough and it's hard, and you're more than likely going to fail, let's make it into a numbers game. Let's make our own luck. Let's create that opportunity. And so what we did in Brunswick was something that was rather unique. We built up our model, identified areas of interest, and then went crazy in terms of staking. We worked across the entirety of Canada. And Canada is going to be one of those countries that you're going to see in textbooks in a few years' time saying, this is one of the sources of lithium. So it's where you want to be. And in the span of 6 months, if you remember, we had forest fires last year, so it was a little bit tricky. They kind of choked out New York City. So we had to deal with those. But quite rapidly, we made 3 discoveries. Any junior, any company would kill to make 3 discoveries in 6 months. And from there, we started drilling. Early September, we started doing our first 5,000 meters. We've been putting out assays. We're now going to be doing our next 10,000 meters. That's the type of success that you want to see. And so when I look at the macro perspective to tie up to what you were saying before, sure, lithium price has retraced, but the long and the medium term hasn't changed. And Brunswick is here for the long and the medium and the short term. And so we are focused on that. And we are here to prove that we're not just finding lithium, we're finding mines. And that's what we want to be doing.
So my understanding is that you guys have a really massive land package, and the plan is for you guys to just sort of kind of get very selective about where you want to find your drill targets and then go and drill them. Obviously that sounds very simple. How do you go about finding what you think are appropriate drill targets?
That's a great question. It's good old detective work. We looked at maps from the 1950s. We poured through government database, any clue that we thought could lead us to identify lithium. You have to remember, for the longest time, it was not of no interest. We have one asset right now, all right? It's our number one discovery. We're putting the whole package to it. Twice the government had gone there mapping. There'd been drilling. They had hit pegmatites. No one bothered to look at the lithium. And it's not like it was hard to find. It was right there at surface in huge outcrops. There was no real focus on it. There was no real work. And so, in terms of generating that package, it was good old-fashioned work. It was just knuckling down, building a team, identifying areas of interest, and being the first mover. And on top of that, having, the gut to go ahead and be so aggressive. Juniors don't go exploring across all of Canada like we did. That doesn't happen. They stay focused in their yard and they do a little package and then they move on to the next one. We said no. We went very, very aggressive on that front. And we're being rewarded for that by having discoveries in our hands that we can now grow and reward our shareholders with.
So do you guys spend a lot of money on geophysics and geochemistry, or are you guys mostly going off of historic data?
So a lot of it's historic data and boots on the ground. Geophysics not going to work when it comes to lithium, when it comes to pegmatite, the rock we're looking for. It's going to be blind to that. So you got to be boots on the ground. It's kind of fun. What we're doing is looking for, we'll call it an impurity. Not really an impurity, but we'll simplify and say it's an impurity. And this element, all right, this impurity sits in a mineral. And in the field, using certain tools, we can actually identify this impurity in a matter of seconds. And I really mean seconds.
Is that using an XRF gun?
Exactly. It's an XRF. So we're out there, our teams are out there with this device. They put it to the rock. They put it to a mineral called a feldspar, which is actually used in ceramics. And then they pull the trigger and they get a reading. And if we see the presence of that element in high enough concentration, then, stop. This is an area we want to spend more time on. And if not, all right, boys, back in the chopper, we're going to the next one. And that's something that is unparalleled. I can't be this fast in gold. I can't be this fast in copper.
Killian, I find XRF guns fascinating. I don't have a background in mining. I just came back from a site visit in the Sonoran Desert in Mexico, where they introduced me to the XRF gun, and it seems like you've been in mining for decades, right? How much of a disruptive technology is that?
I'll be honest. You can't use it everywhere. All right, it's certain projects benefit from it. Lithium, pegmatite. Wow, does it gain from it? It feels like science fiction. You want to know how it feels? It feels like I'm in Star Trek, where I can, in the field, they had little tricorders, where here I am with the PXRF, zapping it on a rock and getting that reading. And so it allowed us to make discoveries in such a short time frame. We had forest fires last year and we still made 3 discoveries. We started drilling. We're drilling again. Like, that's exactly what you want to be doing.
Something I find fascinating about the guns, and nobody's really talking about it right now, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but when you have drill core that's coming up, what's to prevent somebody on the field? And I'm not saying that anybody on your team is doing this. This concept's new to me, this idea that you can shoot a gun at a rock and get a reading on the potential elements that you could have in it. The idea that somebody who's working in the field who has access to one of these guns, what are they, $40,000 or $50,000, and then they have the drill core and they can just shoot it and go. They have a sense of what that core could contain.
Exactly, and I'll even do you one better. So the fun thing when it comes to lithium and the rocks we're looking at, and if you've been out in the field, sometimes you're like, oh, this is a granite, and you're going to look at it and it's going to be sparkly, and they'll tell you there's these minerals in there, and you'll nod and say, yeah, sure, I guess. But they're tough to see, right? Because they're really small. Well, when you're actually dealing with a pegmatite, everything's coarse grain. Have you ever seen a crystal the size of your arm? A crystal the size of your hand? That's what you're doing in pegmatites. So, that gun, funnily enough, doesn't actually pick up lithium, so I can't use it to get a reading on my lithium content, but I don't need to. I can actually see the lithium content based off the presence of a mineral called spodumene that's the size of my fist in the core. And then the other thing I could do, I can even bring out a UV lamp, plain old UV lamp, and it actually lights up the core, lights up the spodumene, that lithium, in sort of a salmon reddish color. And so in a black room, we light it up, and I swear to God, you're like at a rave. You're seeing just the whole core light up with lithium. And based on the amount that we see, the amount of spodumene, the amount of that mineral we see, we can actually have a good understanding of what the grade's going to be. And we can adjust in the field what we're going to do. And so it's just, you're bringing so many different things to the table here when you're looking for lithium, that it is a game changer. If you go into this thinking it's like going to be copper or like going to be gold, you're going to be left behind. You're truly going to be left behind from a company perspective, from an exploration perspective. And so we were disruptive in that perspective. We were disruptive in staking so much. We were disruptive in making so many discoveries. That's what set Brunswick apart from so many other companies in the space.
It seems like, and we've interviewed some companies who have a similar strategy, but it seems to me like the real adult or prudent way of actually running a junior mining company, right? Like you see companies and, they'll just have one tiny property that's a grassroots property and, oh, we're going to go and drill this. And it's like, well, how do you really know that this is a great drill target? Of course, it's your job to tell us that you have great drill targets, but how much land have you actually explored? How much due diligence have you done? But when you stake so much land and you're putting so much work and money into just figuring out the right drill targets, and you have the money to go and drill them, it seems like now I know that investors might not be looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is my better shot at torque, but it seems like from a dilution perspective, which is the big killer in all these junior mining stocks, and just a general common sense approach for a company to go and try to find a big deposit, that is the right approach. And I'm surprised that we don't see more companies do it. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised, because I guess that's how junior mining works, but it seems like the most sensible approach to going and making a discovery.
Look, absolutely. The one thing any CEO will never want to admit, but I'll have to admit it right now, is that 999 times out of 1,000, you're going to fail. You're going to have a great idea. You could have the best team in the world, and you're going to find nothing. And it sucks. It really, really sucks. However, if you have a way of being able to sort very, very fast, and you start from such a large number, then those odds, they don't really matter as much, or at least you're creating your own luck. If it's, sub 1% that works, but I start off with, 1,000 different opportunities, 1,000 different targets, then I'm giving myself that chance of actually making that significant discovery. And so, again, that was the first opportunity, that first value creation in Brunswick, was identifying that let's make it into a numbers game. Let's make our own luck by having these multitude of projects, so that the investor, when he's looking at, I understand what they're faced with. They see 40 different lithium stocks, and all of their CEOs are banging on the table. Oh, I got the best one. No, I got the best one. Well, how do you know? How do you truly know which one has the best project? To your point, they all have their little claim package, and that's all they have. And here we're saying, well, let's think of it a little bit differently. Sure, you could invest in those 40 different companies and try to understand, well, which one has the best project in the end. Or a company like ourselves, which started off with the portfolio equivalent of those 40 companies, we're going to get rid of the waste and find, the one or two that actually make sense, that are worthy of real work, that are worthy of more follow-up, and that have the potential of being a mine. That's that leverage that we can do.
It reminds you of a quote here, and just let me look it up here. I want to say it was Charlie Munger who said this. It was Peter Lynch, that investing is a game where the person who turns over the most rocks wins. And it makes sense that would work in geology, right?
You would imagine, and people don't do it. You would imagine not enough people do it. And so absolutely, you have to turn as many rocks as you can. And no company has turned as many rocks as Brunswick over the last 18 months. We, again, and we're rewarded for it. We have made discoveries that we're now moving to those next stage. And we're still not forgetting where we come from. We're going to be doing more prospecting. We're going to be doing more work because we still think there's more discoveries to be made. But it's absolutely fascinating to be growing in such a rapid way.
Now, I normally never ask CEOs about their stock price, but I know that it has been a bit of a rough week for Brunswick. Do you have any comments on what's happening with the stock right now?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely been a rough week. We put out some of our best results, to be quite honest. And to me, it's classic bear market. We're at the bottom of a sentiment of the market, so there's a lot of negativity out there. But we're not abandoning our plan. We know what we have, we believe in what we have, and we're going to go push forward on that. And fair value will start to bubble back up. All right. Management and insiders are here at 35% of the company. We're not going anywhere. We're sticky, and we're about as sticky as it gets. And we want this to work, and we will make it work.
So something I love asking questions to companies about, although we could just hop on CDAR and pull it up ourselves. Let's talk about the cap table. Do we got any convertible debt? What prices did most of the money get raised at? Are there any noteworthy investors?
Yeah, so perfect question. When I look at the cap table, pretty much everyone has raised, or we've raised money at higher pricing than what we're trading at right now. Which to me is a strong signal that it's a little bit outsized when nothing has fundamentally changed, when we still have all that upside in front of us, right? We've raised about $15 million last year. It was at significantly higher price. Our last raise was at $1.25 back in December. There was no warrants attached to that. We do have some warrants. They're between 85 cents and $1.25 in the majority of them. We have some options, but nothing really consequential on that front. There's no debt, there's no convertible debenture. It's a very simple, very clean story from that perspective. And that's how we like to operate it. There are things you can control. You can control your company, you can control what you work on. So we try to keep that as simple as possible so that there's no issues on that front.
So I also see here, I just logged into CEO.ca. You guys have 51 people online right now, which is as far as the current state of the Canadian junior markets and that platform, that's a high number. That's probably one of the most active message boards in junior mining, I'd imagine. What is it that has brought so many people into this community? Why are people so engaged with the stock?
Look, I think people are engaged because they understand what we're trying to do. All right. It's a strategy that's a little bit different. It's one that is maximizing that sort of value growth, value creation by being focused on exploration. Right. And so we've been trying to get the message out there. People respond well, and we're just trying to help them see this is where we're going. It helps that management and insiders are aligned. Right. They know that we're going to be going to bat right with them in terms of and growing the value of the company. And that's what we're doing, right? Every day we're trying to wake up, all right, how are we going to get this better than when we started the day? And we're not going to ignore that. So yes, we've had a lot of people engaging and, participating in the discussion. We're always more than happy to talk to our investor base, good or bad. We'll always take their calls. We'll always respond to their messages. And I think they appreciate that, if I have a question, if there's something I need to understand, the team is there to answer it.
Let's wrap it up with 2024 plans. Investors watching this that are interested in what does the near-term goals look like for 2024. If you and I sat down in a year, what would a successful 2024 look like for the company?
Look, the lifeblood of any company on the exploration side, junior mining, is exploration, right? If they're not doing work, why are you investing in them? They have to be moving the needle. They have to. And that's my objective for 2024. I want to move the needle. I wanted to demonstrate that Mirage is one of the best assets, one of the best discoveries in the best jurisdiction in the world for lithium. All right. I want to show that to the broader market, to our investors, to confirm that potential. So we drill, we explore, we put boots on the ground, we do the work that is necessary to advance those assets. So what does a successful BRW, having this interview in 2025 look like? It looks like a company that did something, that left its mark out there, that demonstrated that Mirage is an asset that is going to be a mine. Whether it takes 2, 5, 10 years, it's going to see lithium producing. All right. That is something that is very important for us. And so we are going to move towards that. That's why we're starting a new drill campaign. All right. We did our 5,000 meters. We're now ready to move into the next level and continue expanding from there. And we are going to push as hard as we can to demonstrate the potential across our asset base. We have plans to drill the rest of our discoveries throughout the year, and we have plans to do more prospecting. So it is going to be systematic exploration throughout the entire year.
Well, Killian, thanks for hopping on here. This was a very engaging interview. You're a great speaker. And I think that's a big part of the reason why you developed such a following. I wish you guys the best of luck in the future. And hopefully you'll come back on here in the future as the story continues to develop, because I think you guys are doing things the right way.
Oh, look, much appreciated. I'll definitely come back.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let us know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.